So I actually would like to first go out to the audience to see if any, I'd love to know your reactions. I know we've been together for a long time, but we really felt like this block was really important, as I was saying before, to unearth these histories. So I'm just curious if anyone has any questions before I have questions.
Everybody's films were incredible. I am wondering about the journalists, the National Association of Black Journalists and Friends of Image. What is like now, like specifically now in this climate where all of the news, not all, but we have so much news that is not true going out there as if it is news, and the whole confusion, who's a journalist and who isn't, and how you're dealing with all of that.
Well, the people from the NABJ are not with us, unfortunately. But I do think that as independent filmmakers, you are journalists in your own right. And I think that with the advent of taking away, journalism from stories, with the change in studios, with, you don't have independent media really, I think that as independent filmmakers, this is your responsibility to sort of step up where everyone else has stepped back. So can you talk just a little bit about that? Like, because that was my question too, is like, why did you feel like you needed to make these movies? We've seen the busing movie 100 times. I mean, it is what Boston is known for. But the way you told that story is one that I've never seen it be told that way before, which I thought was incredible. So could you guys just all talk a little bit about why you chose to do this, and with that idea of journalism?
I'm only going to jump into the front line because my answer is so simple, is that our project involved a ton of interviews, and you hear certain things as you listen to those, and you're sitting there after more than 2 hours of talking to someone, and you start to notice some things, and you go, what the heck is that? And we noticed many people mentioned Chrisman Street, and we were asking about other things, and it would come back to that, and there were several things about that, and you said, what's going on there? So that's why this film ended up becoming something.
Yeah, it grew out of an oral history project. And I do have a little bit of a background in journalism, but one thing they teach you with formal training in oral history is you're not the story, right? You can't ask leading questions. You ask open-ended questions, and then you listen to what the people have to say, and you record it. And so we had 30 hours of material, just some incredible stories from Mississippi of the last 60, 70 years. And Ted is right, they kept going back to Chrisman Street. So we're like, well, that's a story that needs to be told, and that's, we tried to do it justice.
I think I will answer the question you posed specifically about the busing crisis and the genesis of our story. I think we set out to tell a story about the busing crisis because it was the 50th anniversary of the crisis, and it was such a seminal moment in Boston's history. And as someone who grew up in the Boston area, I wondered how it could possibly be that I never learned about the busing crisis in school. And so I set out to talk to as many people as I could about the busing crisis and why it wasn't taught in Boston schools. And my colleague Stephanie and I luckily were put in touch with Leola, who is here tonight. And she had a beautiful personal story that made us realize that the story of busing was not over in Boston, and that the legacy and the trauma that it caused lives on today, and that was the modern story we were trying to tell. I don't know if you have anything to add, Steph.
Just that meeting first Leola and then her sister, Sudie, their willingness to share their story, and I think in the end their desire to share that story and put it in context. I think just sort of made us realize we had something kind of special there, and that we were on the right track. So it was that sort of talking to people, talking to sources, and figuring it out, and then realizing, we really had something.
The story of redlining and urban renewal, everybody knows it because everybody has experienced it. But I felt like it was not a story that was telling it from the infrastructural point of view. In fact, every story that you heard here today from every movie is in essence a redline narrative, because all Black people were kept in these areas. So when I was thinking about, how do we tell this story, it was really complicated to try and put the whole Boston infrastructure and its history in a documentary. And I thought that, but it needed to be done because engineers, I always make the joke that, especially civil engineers, a lot of effort is concentrated and attention is compensated on what happens within the infrastructure we build and not much how much of that activity can go on if there's no infrastructure, right? And then the proximity to space, can be over a mile and a half from Nubian Square right now. And once you get across a certain street, it's night and day. And we go by that every day and we don't understand how, if I play with a couple of roads here, divert traffic here, I can literally wipe out a whole community, because most of these businesses and cultural spaces are literally just operating on a 5-10% margin for profit. So it doesn't take much to knock them out. Then when you do more deeper research, especially in the cultural diversity space, you start realizing that there's actually no African American cultural hub, and I'm saying foundational African American in Boston. We came over here in 1638, we're on the Desire. And there's no actual space. There are more Dominican spaces, Haitian spaces, God bless them. I mean, I'm also half Nigerian, so it's not like I'm anti-immigrant in any way. But when the foundational group is not represented in any kind of cluster, then we have to look at that. That's cultural erasure. When you think about the whole United States, and that this happened at the same time, all across the United States, all at the same time, thousands of cultural hubs, thousands of Black Wall Streets eradicated at once. And it's not even mentioned as like a blip. It's like, okay, well, there was a Kerner report in that first one where they were talking about. It's just not even a blip. We're talking about the whole Chitlin Circuit, if y'all know what the Chitlin Circuit is. Our whole musical, the reason why jazz is all across the United States is because of the Chitlin Circuit and the Green Book. And the Green Book, all the spaces in the Green Book, the vast majority are gone. That's our cultural economic space, how we make our money being ourselves. We don't have that opportunity here. We have to work for other people. So I hope I focus on that, but also that the displacement is happening now. In fact, I would say it's not a legacy of the past. I would say it's actually accelerating right now by scales of economy. If we don't do anything, people around White Stadium, Mattapan, Hyde Park, they're gonna end up like Beacon Hill. We have the receipts, go to Beacon Hill. Thank you.
For a little bit of context, the way that the film, The Brunch, came about was as a commission piece. So that film is actually Mel King's homegoing video. It's a eulogy. So this is the first time that I'm seeing this film out of the context of like everybody not already knowing who this guy is. He was talked about a little bit in the redlining documentary, and I think that was so perfect because he championed for space and was a multicultural advocate for sure. But for those of you who don't know, Mel King is a Boston legend, and I don't have the ability or the time to explain how important this guy is. But he passed away in 2023, I believe, and we were commissioned to make his homegoing film that was played at Union Church. We had 4 days to do it. So that film was made in 4 days. And I don't want to get too much into the process of the making of that film because it was very beautiful. GBH Archive actually gave us all the archival footage that was seen in that film, and that was only possible because I knew Tina Cassidy, CMO, right? So there's a lot of really, really crazy things about that film being made. But going back to the question about the journalistic ability as a filmmaker, I think that's like the special thing about being a filmmaker, right? It's like you can kind of make whatever you want, right? So what I'm excited about these days is finding stories and finding things that I feel like, you know, should be talked about or should be highlighted. And it's unfortunate that it took Mel King's passing for me and my friends to make this documentary about him. And honestly, I wouldn't even call it, you know, a true documentary. You know, we kind of start at the end with Mel, with the brunch, you know? And there's so many incredible things about that guy's life. And so seeing this film with the other docs, you know, it just kind of like, I just feel like there needs to be a Mel King, a full King. But the last thing I'll say about that, if you can, his book that Jesse Jackson was holding, Chains of Change, is I believe available for purchase. Like you can get it from Amazon or like used bookstore or something like that. Mel King, Chains of Change. I've been reading that book. It's incredible. He's a Boston legend, and we just want more people to know about Mel King because he's a giant. And I think in looking at moving forward in Boston, I think you start with a guy like Mel King, for sure. So.
Roxbury?
Yes, I'd actually like to say for each and every one of you, thank you for each of your films. Very poignant, historical, and as a filmmaker, also as a documentarian, how is it, did you have to navigate through the process of your research when going into your stories and basically going through the fruition of finishing them to see where they are today now? Give me each and every one.
All right. Well, mine is all right. Mine is really easy. I run a youth program here in the city of Boston. In fact, we started on Monday at UUM Urban Ministries, and a lot of the footage was taken on field trips, and a lot of work that I was doing with my young people. We've been doing this work about. I've been doing this research about 4 or 5 years, so I got a grant. I was able to, when I said what I wanted to do, and with help of my students, Northeastern, and Carolyn, who was in every movie, which I got every movie. I'm gonna give her a call, she's been really busy. And Adam from Desegregation by Design. A lot of people came together, Alita Parker Jr. and Lou Finfro as well. They really helped me out, so I was grateful the community supporting us. So that's how we did it. Research. Next.
Anyone else?
I'll mention one thing, which is that this was it's a very conventional film in a way, but a new process in that this was an oral history project that early on went into discussions of how could this material, which is going to be a lot of material, it's going to be archived, how could that be used in future documentaries? That was something we looked into. We've actually written a long paper about some of the things we discovered and how you do that. But so this was sort of a first attempt at how do you make these two traditions not fight? How do they work together? Oral history does one thing, and traditionally a documentarian wants to go into their process, does some other things, and they don't always match up. So we very much try to find ways to do that. We work with students in the process of recording it and other things, and they had their contributions and ideas to it. So the process of this was that there was an archive first, things that struck us very much. You could tell 16 different stories with everyone who was interviewed. But this became something of, if that's something that struck us, they talked about this as the hub of where things happened. So, well, could you really make this work? We take the oral history material and make it into the thing it wants to be. And so the process was, the one you don't want is a documentarian, which is that you're not getting paid to do the thing, but it's haunting you, and you're going, this really needs to come out in some way. And you know, well, this will be easy. It'll take me two nights to edit it, and then you're about a month later, you're going, I got the first part, I kind of have the idea, and then you go, I think I want to win this fight. I want to make it into what it wants to be. So the process here was one of, I think, I know we started with journalism, but I think one of somebody who's past is in art, where you go, I've got to rework this thing. I've got to make it into an actual piece, you know. And you may have a different view of this, I know, because you started it, something that really is a historical archive.
It's not too different. I mean, Ted is now, he teaches over at Bunker Hill Community College. And I mean, really, honestly, part of just this idea of combining documentary filmmaking with oral history was that I've seen so many oral histories that obviously the people have good things to say, but the person doing the oral history, recording it, didn't know anything about film or lighting or you know, miking people correctly. And as a result, you didn't necessarily get the full story. And so that's really just kind of where this kind of came out of, was like, what if we did film this, and what if we opened it up to documentary filmmakers who want to tell other stories, because there's some really incredible stories just from, you know, 16 everyday people that went to Eastside High School. You know, some of the best stories really come out of local people. And it just, yeah, I mean, I can't emphasize enough, particularly with this generation that went through integration and desegregation, getting as many of those stories as you can. Just recording the day-to-day indignities of Jim Crow segregation in the South, or what the busing story did, to tell those stories, because they need to be preserved. Otherwise, if they're not recorded, then they won't be preserved for history.
And that's the most important thing, I think, for us at ROX, is making sure that those histories are preserved. And I do, you know, GBH is open source, so you guys are carrying a lot of information for all of us. But I think for all of you, it really isn't, for all of us out here, it really is about being curious and about asking questions and about making sure that that history is documented. And it doesn't matter whether it's documented on a iPhone audio or whether you're documenting it, you know, using video. We have to document it, because there's so much erasure that's already happened, that will in the next couple of years continue to happen. And I think it's our responsibility as those who are media savvy, who are doing media work, that you find out these stories. And I think a big part of that is talking to people and listening to people. So I want to thank you. I don't know if you have one thing to say, but we're sort of out of time. I just want to thank you for doing that, for keeping our histories alive, for continuing the work that you're doing, for making sure that you're bringing it to spaces, making it available to kids, making it available to your communities and outside of your communities, because we are all just going to be stronger and better with the knowledge and understanding that these stories consistently need to be told. So thank you.
Thank you.